Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Ang ire-report namin ngayon ay ang Chapter 18 ng buhay ni Jose Rizal na may title na Biarritz Vacation and Romance with Nelly Busted. Sa chapter na ito, makikita natin yung time na si Rizal ay nagbakasyon sa France sa isang magandang lugar na tinatawag na Biarritz. At dito rin naranasan ang panibagong pag-ibig pagkatapos ng heartbreak niya kay Leonor Rivera. Isa pa, dito niya rin tinapos ang El Filibusterismo, kaya mahalaga ang chapter na ito sa personal at literary journey niya. Taong 1891 pumunta si Rizal sa Biarritz, isang sikat na resort city sa French Riviera. Dito siya nagbakasyon para makalimot sa mga problema niya sa Madrid, lalo na yung political frustration at personal heartbreak. Tinanggap siya ng buo ng Busted family, lalo na si Mr. Eduardo Busted at ang asawa nito. Tumira siya sa Villa Eliada, ang winter house ng pamilya, kasama sina Adelina at Nelly Busted na mga anak ni Eduardo Busted. Sa Biarritz, sobrang naging magaan ang loob ni Rizal sa sobrang ganda ng lugar. May mga beaches, fresh na hangin at peaceful na atmosphere, kaya naging masaya ulit siya. Sabi pa nga niya sa sulat niya kay Mariano Ponce noong February 11, 1891, unti-unting gumaan ang buhay niya dahil sa tahimik at masayang environment na dala ng hangin sa Biarritz. Habang tumatagal si Rizal sa Biarritz, naging malapit siya kay Nelly Busted, yung bunsong anak ni Eduardo Busted. Si Nelly ay matalino, maganda, masayahin at may mataas na moralidad. Lahat nun ay pasok sa standards ni Rizal sa isang babae. Nung una, parang rebound niya lang si Nelly, pero eventually, nahulog talaga ang loob niya kay Nelly. Sa mga sulat niya pa sa mga kaibigan niya, nabanggit niya na gusto niya pakasalan si Nelly. Pati mga kaibigan niya gaya ni Nadal Villar, Tomas Arejola at Antonio Luna, todo suporta sa love life niya. Pabiro pa nga ni Del Villar na palitan na raw ang O sa Nolly, magiging Nelly na siya, Nolly to Nelly. Medyo pabirong suporta sa kanyang kaibigan na si Jose Rizal. Si Antonio Luna naman, na minsan ding nagkagusto kay Nelly, nagsabing wala na raw silang relasyon at binigyan niya pa ng blessing si Rizal na ligawan ito. Pero kahit mutual feelings nila ni Nelly, hindi na uwi sa kasalan ang relasyon nila. May dalawang dahilan kung bakit. First, si Nelly ay isang protestante at gusto niya na si Rizal ay mag-convert muna bago sila ikasal. Pero si Rizal, kahit naging maso na, hindi iniwan ang Catholic faith niya. Isa siyang taong may paninindigan. Second reason, pagtutol ng nanay ni Nelly. Ayaw ng nanay ni Nelly kay Rizal dahil para sa kanya si Rizal ay mahirap, walang stable na trabaho at delikado dahil sa kanyang political activism. Dahil dito, hindi na tuloy ang kasal, pero kahit nasaktan si Rizal, naghiwalay sila ng maayos. Sinusulatan pa nga siya ni Nelly ng farewell letter na puno ng respeto at dasal para sa tagumpay ni Rizal. Habang ine-enjoy ni Rizal ang Biarritz at ang mga gabi sa ilalim ng buwan kasama si Nelly, hindi niya pinabayaan ang pagsusulat. Dito niya natapos ang huling kabanata ng El Filibusterismo noong March 29, 1891, isang araw bago siya umalis papuntang Paris. Sabi niya sa sulat kay Blumentritt, I have not written in it my idea of revenge, only what is for the good of those who are suffering. Ibig sabihin, kahit galit siya sa mga kaaway niya, mas pinili niya na ang libro ay maging inspirasyon para sa mga Pilipino, hindi para maghiganti. Pagkatapos sa Biarritz, nagpunta si Rizal sa Paris at tumira sa bahay ni Valentin Ventura, ang kaibigan niya. Doon, nagplano siyang pumunta sa Hong Kong para mag-practice ng ophthalmology at kumita. Nagsulat siya kay Jose Maria Basa at humingi ng pera para sa steamer ticket pa Hong Kong. Pero habang inaayos pa ang biyahe, bumalik muna siya sa Brussels at sinalubong siya ng kanyang mga dating kakilala roon, lalo na si Petite Suzanne, yung Belgian girl na may gusto sa kanya noon. So,
Dito naman tayo sa Rizal and the publication of El Filibusterismo. So, noong June 18, 1991, si Rizal, abala siya sa pag-aasikaso ng printing ng El Filibusterismo. So, konting-konti na lang, parang tatlong chapters na lang yung kailangan niyang i-correct or i-revise. Pero gaya ng dati, naging hadlang na naman ang kakulangan sa pera. So, humingi siya ng tulong kay Bass para sa gastusin sa printing. Hindi rin siya sigurado kung hindi sigurado si Rizal kung sa Belgium ba or sa Spain mapiprint yung novel. So, pero ang mas nakakabilib is inihanda niya na rin ang plano kung sakaling may masamang mangyari sa kanya. Sinabi niya na kung hindi siya umabot, si Antonio Luna ang magpapatuloy ng project niya at titiyakin niyang mailalabas yung libro or maipiprint yung libro. At kung sakaling mang hindi talaga matuloy ang pagpiprint ng libro is may sapat siyang pamasahe, balak niyang umuwi pabalik sa Pilipinas. Ang hindi marunong lumingon sa pinanggagalingan ay hindi makakarating sa paroroonan. These powerful words from Dr. Jose Rizal remind us of the importance of remembering our past, especially the sacrifices made for our nation's freedom. After the success and controversy of Noli Me Tangere, Rizal knew his mission was not yet finished. He needed to go deeper, to expose not just the cancer of society, but the fire that burned within the heart of those oppressed. This is where El Filibusterismo was born. Sa likod ng bawat pahina ng nobelang ito ay nakatago ay isang kwento. Kwento ng sakripisyo, paghihirap at matinding pagmamahal sa bayan. I am Nasreen and Mama, and in this chapter, we will explore the journey of how Rizal gave life to El Filibusterismo, a novel that was written not in comfort, but in struggle, not with ease, but with purpose. So let's start at number 1. Rizal's continued dedication to his second novel. So, sinimulan ni Rizal ang pagsusulat ng El Filibusterismo noong 1887 habang nasa Calama siya. So, nung nasa London, Paris at Madrid siya, ini-edit at nire-revise niya nito hanggang sa natapos niya yung manuscript sa Biarritz, France noong March 29, 1891. So, halos 3 years niyang natatapos at pinagtrabahuan yung novel. Next is Struggles in Ghent, Belgium. So, pagdating ng July 1899, lumipat siya sa Ghent, Belgium. So, may dalawang dahilan. Mas mura ang printing doon kumpara sa Brussels, and also gusto niyang iwasan yung mga distractions. Kasama niya sa boarding house si Jose Alejandro. So, sobrang tipid ang pamumuhay nila doon. Sila mismo yung nagluluto ng pagkain. Minsan, biscuit lang ang kinakain nila para makatipid. Next is ang printing challenges and financial strain. So, nahanap ni Rizal ang F. Mayer van Lopres na pumayag na i-print yung libro niya per installment. Pero dahil kapos talaga siya sa pera, napilitan siyang isang laang mga alahas niya. So, nung August 1891 naman, kinailangan niyang itigil muna ang printing kasi ubos na yung funds niya. Buti na lang din may ilan siyang kaibigan na tumulong. Nagpadala si Rodriguez Arias ng 200 pesos, si Basa ng kaunting halaga, at sa isang sulat kay Basa, sinabi ni Rizal na baka hindi na niya matapos ang pagpapalimbag kung wala nang darating na pera. Pero kahit hirap na, hindi siya tumigil. Next ay ang manuscript and lost forward warning. So, yung original na manuscript ni Rizal is nakapreserve siya sa Philippine government. May dalawang parts na hindi na isama sa printed version, yung forward and warning. Tinanggal ito dahil sa kakulangan sa budget, pero mahalaga sana ito sa pag-unawa ng intention ni Rizal. Next is the forward. Sa forward, sinabi ni Rizal na takot ang lipunan sa katotohanan. Pinuna niya ang gobyerno at ang mga tao na iniiwasan ng problema. Para sa kanya, ang tunay na pagbabago ay nagsisimula lang kapag natutunan nating tanggapin ang totoo kahit masakit. The warning. So, sa warning naman, sinabi niya na hindi basta kwento lang ang nobela. Hindi ito ginawa para lang aliwin ng mga tao, Gusto niyang gisingin ng mga Pilipino. Yes, fictional ang mga karakter, pero totoo ang mga isyong pinapakita. Korupsyon, pang-aabuso at kawalang katarungan. So,
Warning section. Critics of El Filibusterismo are warned not to focus on trivial matters or hidden motives. This means the author is telling readers not to waste time overanalyzing small or irrelevant details or trying to find secret meanings that aren't there. The author aims to reveal the disease of society, not to distract the reader. The book's main goal is to expose the problems in society, like corruption, injustice, and abuse of power, not to entertain or mislead. The story features real, recent events and authentic substance. The events in the book are based on things that actually happened or represent real issues of the time, making the novel more meaningful and grounded in truth. Characters are deliberately distorted to avoid repeating earlier portrayals. The author purposely changed or exaggerated some characters so they wouldn't be too similar to those in his first book, The Nolimitang Ere, allowing for new messages and interpretation. The author's goal is to highlight the lasting impact of man's vices. Even though people die, their bad actions like greed or cruelty leave long-term effects. The writer wants to show how those effects influence society. Inscription on title page, written by Ferdinand Blumentritt, not commonly included in English translations. This is a rare piece of writing by Jose Rizal's friend that isn't usually found in English versions of the book. Suggests that a rebel filibustero has been influenced by friar zealots and retrogrades. Blumentritt says rebels may have been tricked or pushed into action by extreme religious leaders and people with outdated ideas. Warns that such influence might lead Filipinos to, first, support rebellion, and second, believe that separation from Spain is the only path to salvation. He warns that this could cause Filipinos to think that rebellion and complete independence from Spain are the only answers, even if that path was influenced by bad intentions. Synopsis of El Filibusterismo. Sequel to Nolimitang Ere. This is the second part of the story that began in Nolimitang Ere. It contains less humor and romance, more tragic and revolutionary. Unlike the first book, which had love stories and a softer tone, this one is darker, more serious, and focuses on rebellion and change. Protagonist, Simon, the disguised Crisostomo Ibarra from Noli. The main character is actually Ibarra from the first book, now hiding under a new name and identity. Escaped to Cuba, became rich, returned to the Philippines. After faking his death and escaping the authorities, Simon went to Cuba, got wealthy, and came back. He uses his influence and wealth for revenge and reform. Now that he has power and money, he wants to destroy the corrupt system and take revenge for what happened in the past. Powerful due to both his wealth and his insider knowledge as a former ally of the governor. He's not just rich, he also knows how the government works, which makes him dangerous and influential. Simon appears to be a friend of Spain, but secretly seeks revenge. Simon hides his true feelings and intentions. On the outside, he acts loyal to Spain, but he actually wants to bring it down. His two main goals: first, rescue Maria Clara from the Santa Clara convent. Maria Clara was forced into the convent, and Simon wants to free her. Second, start a revolution against Spanish rule. His bigger mission is to inspire Filipinos to rise up against the Spanish colonizers. The novel opens aboard the steamer Tabo, traveling from Manila to Laguna de Bay. The story begins on a boat, symbolizing the journey and mix of people from different classes and beliefs. Passengers on the boat include Simon, Doña Victorina, Paulita Gomez, Benzaib, Padre Sevilla, Padre Camara, Don Custodio, Padre Salvi, Padre Irene, Padre Florentino, Isagani, and Basilio. These people represent different sectors of society: Spanish officials, religious leaders, nationalists, and students. Their interactions show the tensions and problems in the country. Simon is a close advisor of the Spanish Governor General. He has a high position that gives him access to power and influence. He is called Brown Cardinal or Black Eminence for his secret power and influence. These nicknames highlight how he controls things behind the scenes, like a shadow ruler. He uses his position to promote corruption, support abusive policies, and cause societal suffering to provoke rebellion. Simon believes that if he worsens the system, people will be forced to fight back and rebel. He smuggles arms with the help of Chinese merchant Caraga. He brings weapons in the country secretly to prepare for a future uprising with Caraga's help. His first revolution fails when Maria Clara dies in the convent. The death of Maria Clara breaks him emotionally, and he loses his motivation. Simon becomes sick with grief and delays the uprising. His sorrow causes him to fall ill and stop his plans temporarily. Later, after recovering from illness, he resumes his plan. Even after being deeply hurt, Simon regains his strength and continues working toward revolution. Simon gives a wedding gift, a lamp, to Paulita Gomez and Juanito Pelaez, which is secretly a bomb. This shows Simon's deep plan to use the wedding to assassinate many key figures in society. Only Simon and Basilio know the lamp will explode once lit, aiming to kill government officials at the wedding. Basilio, a close friend of Isagani, knows the danger, but only a few are aware of the plot. Simultaneously, government buildings in Manila will also be attacked. Simon's plan isn't just personal revenge. He aims for a full-scale revolution. Isagani, rejected by Paulita, watches the wedding from outside. His heartbreak places him near the scene, which becomes crucial later. Basilio warns Isagani about the explosive lamp. Basilio's warning is vital. It prompts Isagani to act heroically. Isagani, realizing Paulita is in danger, rushes inside, throws the lamp into the reaper, and prevents the explosion. Isagani's love for Paulita pushes him to save her, stopping the planned massacre. Simon's plot is discovered. He is wounded and flees with his treasure to Padre Florentino's house. After the failed plan, Simon is hunted and seeks refuge, symbolizing his downfall. Spanish authorities plan to arrest Simon and Padre Florentino's home. His hiding place is found, and he faces inevitable capture. Simon takes poison to avoid capture and confesses everything to Padre Florentino before dying. Facing death, Simon reveals his identity and intentions, showing his failure and regret. Padre Florentino forgives Simon and reflects on suffering and divine punishment. The priest offers spiritual insight, emphasizing forgiveness and the consequences of revenge. Padre Florentino reflects on God's mercy in thwarting Simon's evil plans. This shows the priest's strong faith and belief that divine justice prevails even when humans fail. As Simon dies, Padre Florentino questions where the noble, selfless Filipino youth have gone. The priest mourns the loss of patriotic spirit among the youth, reflecting Rizal's concern about the national apathy. He expresses hope for a future generation full of courage, purity, and patriotism. Despite his sadness, Padre Florentino still believes in the potential of Filipino youth to bring change. Padre Florentino prays for Simon's soul and throws the treasure chest into the sea. This symbolizes letting go of corrupted wealth that was intended for violence and revenge. He asks the sea to keep the treasure until it can be used for a noble cause. Rizal sends a message that wealth should be used wisely, for the good of the people, not for personal vengeance. Other characters in El Filibusterismo are introduced. These characters show the different struggles faced by Filipinos. Cabezang Tales, victim of injustice, represents peasants who suffer under colonial rule. Julie symbolizes honor and sacrifice, even to the point of death. Makaraig shows youth activism and the push for educational reforms. Padre Melon, a symbol of abusive power in the education system. Placido Penitente reflects frustration with ineffective schooling. And lastly, Senor Pasta represents the educated elite who do nothing to help their country. Senor Pasta refuses to help Filipino students fight for educational reforms. He represents educated Filipinos who avoid involvement in national issues, showing indifference. Other characters in El Filibusterismo include Tandang Salo, symbolizes the older generation suffering under colonial rule. Mr. American Impresario represents foreign influence and shallow interests. Sandoval, a rare example of a foreigner who supports Filipino freedom. Pecson stands for youth activism. Pepay shows how people use personal relationships for influence. Padre Fernandez, one of the few good friars, suggesting not all clergy were corrupt. Don Timoteo, a rich, self-interested businessman. Tano, a son pulled away from family by colonial duty. And lastly, Chichay, represents Filipino craftsmen and the working class. Rizal based El Fili characters on real people. This adds realism to the novel. It shows how Rizal used actual experiences to reflect Philippine society.
Comparison
Of Noli and Fili. Noli Me Tangere is emotional, focused on love, hope, and light-hearted critic. El Filibusterismo is darker, more serious, and focused on political corruption and revolution. El Fili was meant to be longer, but was shortened. Rizal faced financial constraints, which affected the final length of the novel. Rizal preferred Noli over Fili. He believed Noli was more successful in delivering his message through emotion and human connection. Retana, Rizal's Spanish biographer, believed Noli is superior to Fili. This supports Rizal's own opinion that Noli was more effective in delivering his message. However, Blumentritt, Graciano Lopez Haina, and Dr. Rafael Palma thought Philly was better than Nolly. Other intellectuals appreciated Philly for its serious tone and deeper political message. Lopez Haina praised Philly for its depth, elegance, and profound ideas, but felt it lacked a strong ending. He admired Philly's intellect and writing style, but found the ending unsatisfying and abrupt. He advised Rizal to write another novel to offer a solution to the country's problems. This shows the readers wanted Rizal to go beyond just criticism. They wanted hope and direction. The debate over which novel is better, Nolly versus Philly, is considered academic. They are both important and powerful. The focus isn't on which is better, but on how both contributed greatly to the Filipino awakening. Both novels realistically portray Filipino life under Spanish rule and helped inspire Filipino nationalism. They both showed the injustices of the time and sparked a national movement for change. Rizal's unfinished third novel. Rizal had already planned a third novel before being advised to do so. This shows Rizal's deep commitment to telling the Filipino story and offering solutions. In a letter to Blumentritt, Rizal mentioned the third novel would focus more on ethics than politics. Rizal wanted to shift from revolution and anger to reflection and moral development. He planned to include only 2 Spaniards, make it humorous yet emotional, and explore Filipino culture. This novel would be less political and more focused on everyday life, human nature, and identity.
Down to the last chapter, the ophthalmic surgeon in Hong Kong.
So, Rizal lived in Hong Kong from November 1891 to June 1892 after niya i-publish yung El Filibusterismo. So, umalis siya sa Europe due to political disagreements with M.H. Pilar and others at para na rin mapalapit sa kanyang pamilya at sa Pilipinas. So, Rizal informed Del Pilar about his retirement para mapanatili yung unity sa mga Pilipino. So, on October 3, 1981, umalis si Rizal sa Gent papuntang Paris para magpaalam sa friends niya. So, nagbiyahe siya sakay ng tren papuntang Marseilles at saka siya sumakay ng barkong Melbourne patungong Hong Kong noong October 18. So, may dala siyang sulat which is a recommendation from Juan Luna para kay Manuel Camus sa Singapore with 600 copies of El Filibusterismo. So, Rizal enjoys his travel and inilarawan niya ito as heavenly dahil sa kalmadong dagat at magandang panahon. So, he was the only Asian among over 80 first-class passengers. And karamihan is Europeans and impressed them with his multilingual abilities. So, nakipag-ibigan si Rizal with different missionaries including Italian Franciscans, French Jesuits, who were also traveling to China. So, he enjoyed playing chess with Father Fuchs, a Taylorist priest, whom he described as a Father Damaso without pride and malice. So, during the voyage on the Melbourne, Rizal, the only Asian passenger dined alone habang a group of German na mga babae is pinagchichismisan siya while he knows what they were saying but Rizal remained silent. So, may babae na nagsabi sa kanya na i-close daw yung door niya, then tumayo siya without saying anything. Then, i-close na niya yung pinto. And then, kinausap sila ni Rizal with a perfect German language which they were embarrassed, and also because of that they earned their respect. So, dumating si Rizal sa Hong Kong noong November 20, 1891 and he was welcomed by the Filipino residents, especially ang kanyang kaibigan na si Jose Maria Basa. So, nanirahan siya doon kung saan niya binuksan ang kanyang clinic. Noong December 1, 1891, he wrote to his parents requesting permission to return home. And he received a letter from his brother-in-law, Manuel T. Hidalgo, sharing the sad news of the deportation of 25 individuals from Calamba, including family members. So, the Queen Regent of Spain was informed about the situation in Calamba in hopes of securing justice. If the Queen did not respond, Rizal expressed a willingness to appeal to Queen Victoria of England for protection in the name of humanity. So Hidalgo's letter conveyed the sorrow of despair of the Rizal family. So when he was in Hong Kong, he felt helpless kasi hindi niya matulungan yung family niya na inaapa sa Pilipinas. So before Christmas 1891, nag-enjoy si Rizal para sa pagdating ng kanyang father and brother as well as yung kanyang brother-in-law. So soon after his mother and sister also arrived, his mother was 65 and almost blind dahil sa past Spanish brutality. Rizal celebrated one of the happiest Christmas of his life during this family reunion. On January 31, 1892, Rizal wrote to Blumentritt about their peaceful life in Hong Kong, far from the persecutions in the Philippines, and na-appreciate ng kanyang family yung English government. To support his family, Rizal practiced medicine, becoming a well-known ophthalmic surgeon na may maraming client. So he was successfully operated on his mother's left eye, restoring her ability to read and write. Rizal also treated patients suffering from influenza during an epidemic. Friends from Europe provided moral and financial support for his medical practice. Notable friends sent letters of praise and offered assistance in acquiring medical books and instruments. So, Rizal had the qualities of an excellent ophthalmic surgeon recognized for his intellect, skill, and training. So, Dr. Geminiano de Ocampo praised him as having all the necessary qualities for success in ophthalmology. So, dahil sa kalagayan ng mga taga-Calamba under sa pamamahala ni Governor Valeriano Weyler, nagpanukala si Rizal na magtatag ng isang kolonya ng mga Pilipino sa North Borneo, Sabah. He aimed na ilipat ang mga landless families sa mayamang isla na pag-aari ng Britanya to create a bagong Calamba.
Good day, everyone. I am Binali Loban, and my report is still part of Chapter 20 entitled Ophthalmic Surgeon in Hong Kong. And today, I will take you on a journey through one of the lesser known but truly meaningful parts of Dr. Jose Rizal's life. So, allow me to share with you the story of Dr. Rizal's Borneo colonization project, his writings in Hong Kong, his decision to return to Manila, and the events that lead him to falling into the Spanish trap. First is Borneo Colonization Project. So while staying in Hong Kong, Dr. Jose Rizal came up with a very hopeful plan. He dreamed of building a Filipino community in North Borneo, now known as Sabah. He called this dream New Calamba, a new home for Filipinos, especially for those who had lost their lands in Calamba due to conflicts with the friars. So Rizal was not just dreaming big, he had solid support. The British government in Borneo agreed to give Filipino settlers a huge piece of land, about 100,000 acres. That's roughly as big as 50,000 football fields. They are also offered a beautiful harbor and a fair government, all for free, and the lease would last for 999 years. This idea excites many people. Yoshan Lopez Haina, Blumen Treat, and Dr. Bautista Lin strongly supported it. In fact, Lopez Haina was so moved that he even said he wanted to join the new colony. They saw this as a way for Filipinos to live in peace, away from Spanish control. However, not everyone agreed. Dr. Rizal's own brother in law, Manuel Hidalgo, questioned the idea. He asked, "Why should we move to another country without even trying everything we can to fix the one we grow up in?" He believed that running away was not the answer. Things took a turn when the cruel Spanish Governor General Valeriano Weyler was replaced by Eulogio Despujol. Despujol made many promises to improve the Philippines, and Dr. Rizal believed that he might really mean it. So Dr. Rizal wrote letter for him, offering to help and also requested that Filipinos be allowed to settle in Borneo. With the letter that Dr. Rizal gave Despujol, he still ignored Dr. Rizal. But Dr. Rizal did not give up. After 3 months, he wrote another letter and gave it to a ship captain to make sure that it would be delivered. Again, Despujol didn't reply. Instead, he told the Spanish consul in Hong Kong to inform Dr. Rizal that the government could not allow Filipinos to leave for Borneo. The reasons, they said that Philippines already lacked workers and that it was not patriotic to grow food on foreign land. So, in the end, Rizal's dream of New Calamba in Borneo did not come true, not because it was a bad plan, but because the Spanish government refused to allow it. Next is writings in Hong Kong. Even while he was abroad, Dr. Rizal never stopped working for his people. While living in Hong Kong, he spent his time writing and organizing. One of his most important works from this period was the Constitution of the Liga Filipina. This document was meant to guide a new organization that Rizal planned to build in the Philippines. La Liga Filipina was not a rebel group, it was a peaceful reform movement. Rizal believed that Filipinos needed to unite and support each other to bring about the change. Through La Liga Filipina, he wanted to improve education, equality, and economic progress. Writing this constitution showed Rizal's hope for the Filipino people. Even if he was far from home, he remained focused on improving the lives of his fellow countrymen. His pen never rested, even when his body did. The written words he left behind become powerful tools for inspiring others. Next is decisions to return to Manila. Despite knowing the risk, Dr. Rizal decided to return to Manila. But with this, the question is, why would he go back when he was safe in Hong Kong? And here are the three major reasons. First, he wanted to talk to Governor Despujol in person about the Borneo colonization project. Dr. Rizal still had hope that Despujol might change his mind if they had a proper discussion. Second, he planned to formally establish La Liga Filipina in the Philippines. It was not enough for him to write the Constitution. He wanted to put the organization into action and gather members who would help him build a better future. And third, Dr. Rizal wanted to defend his name. In Madrid, Eduardo Delete had been spreading rumors that Dr. Rizal had turned his back on the Philippines. Dr. Rizal wanted to prove this was false by coming back and showing that he had never abandoned the country. He knew that returning home could be dangerous. The Spanish government had always seen him as a threat. But Rizal believed that sometimes you had to take risks to do the right thing, and he was willing to take that risk for the good of his country. Next is Last Hong Kong Letters. The night after celebrating his 31st birthday, Dr. Rizal did something very emotional. He wrote two letters and sealed them carefully. On the outside of each envelope, he wrote, "To be opened after my death." He gave this letter to his close friends, Dr. Marquez, for safekeeping. The first letter was addressed to his parents, siblings, and close friends. It was likely full of love, final words, and maybe even forgiveness. Dr. Rizal knew that if something happened to him, they deserved to hear his last thoughts. The second letter was addressed to all Filipinos. This shows us that Dr. Rizal was not just thinking of his family, he was thinking of the whole nation. He wanted to leave behind a message that would inspire his fellow countrymen to keep fighting for justice and freedom, even if he was not there anymore. These letters remind us that Dr. Rizal was not just a hero in action, but also in heart. He prepared himself for the worst, yet he never let fear stop him from doing what he believed was right. Lastly, for chapter 20 is Dr. Rizal falls into the Spanish trap. Before going back to the Philippines, Dr. Rizal wrote a letter to Governor Despujol on June 21, 1892. In the letter, he told the governor about his plan to return home and ask for protection from the Spanish government. He didn't want to sneak in. He wanted to do things the proper way. Dr. Rizal and his sister Lucia then left Hong Kong for Manila. They had a special passport called Safe Conduct, given by the Spanish consul. This document was supposed to protect them and ensure that they would not be harmed. But at the same time, a secret case was already being prepared in Manila. Dr. Rizal and his followers were being accused of spreading anti religious and anti patriotic ideas. The government had set a trap for him even before he arrived. Governor Despujol even asked his secretary to check if Dr. Rizal was a German citizen. If Dr. Rizal had been protected by another country, like Germany, the Spanish would not be able to touch him. But Dr. Rizal was not a citizen of any other nation. He was a Filipino, and that made him vulnerable. While all of this was happening, Dr. Rizal and Lucia were calmly crossing the China Sea, totally unaware of what awaited them. They had no idea that behind all the polite letters and promises, the Spanish were planning to arrest Dr. Rizal as soon as he set his foot in the country. And this concludes our reporting. We hope that you learned something from us. Thank you.